Hi, if you or your children are suffering because of your relationship with your ex-partner, because it's stressed or strained, or maybe they're just not a nice person, this show is for you. Welcome to the High Conflict Co-Parenting Podcast with Brooke Olson and Charlie Jewett. Enjoy another episode now. Hey everybody, Brooke Olson and Charlie Jewett here. Welcome back to the High Conflict Co-Parenting Podcast. This is episode 48, and Brooke, we're calling this one the Phoenix, which I imagine is kind of rising out of the ashes type of language, and you've got sort of a subtitle of tearing down and starting over. You're not speaking from experience, are you?
Not at all. I've never done this.
It's just things have been
more
smooth.
than 6 or 7 times in this life.
Just smooth sailing from day one till now. Income progressively got better. All relationships were perfect.
It's all been vertical.
Yeah, most people's lives are a bit more roller coastery, right? There's a road on the Big Island. I know they've added a road since, but there's a road on the Big Island that just goes from one side to the other, and it's just these crazy hills. And when you drive it, it's actually kind of terrifying because you're coming up over the hill and you can't see anything that's on the other side. You're basically looking at the sky, right?
Wow.
I can't try to remember what they call it, the belt or something like that, but life's not a straight, flat driving across Arizona type of experience where you can see everything perfectly and there's no problems. There's a lot of ups and downs, huh?
Right. And, getting used to navigating those ups and downs, learning how to trust the process. There's a theme that we've been playing with over a lot of these podcasts that we've been doing. And the theme is just being willing to be with what's here and working with what comes next. And sometimes what comes next is total destruction.
Yeah.
Out of that destruction comes a rebirth, igniting of life and a different path and how things start to lay down.
I mean, as cliche as it is, it's fairly sort of caterpillar and butterfly-y, right? Just like one, I don't know if it dies, but it changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the dualistic piece that I've never even heard the terminology dualism or dualistic thinking or any of that before talking with you, but bad isn't bad and good isn't good. And that's really the way I used to judge the world, right? So basically, what's the perfect recipe for depression? Wake up hoping nothing goes, quote, wrong the way you're defining it. And that only what you consider positive happens in the world. And all of a sudden you're faced with the reality. And the reality is really quite beautiful. But if you come up with another reality and then compare the real one to that one, right? You're let down, you're setting those expectations. You're let down basically all the time as opposed to just rolling with it and letting it happen.
Yeah, and what we're trying to do when we're looking at the dualistic components of this is we're trying to hang on to something. We're trying to, this feels good, this feels survival, this feels like it's something that I need to move forward. And it's sticky because it keeps us from moving forward. And, I've been through 2 divorces. I've been through a couple of large economic turndowns. I've literally had my world destroyed on 2 or 3 or 4 separate occasions along the way. And out of that have come some of the most beautiful lessons of my life. And this knowledge that I'm okay, that I will survive and that something else is going to open up. Until we've experienced that and we've experienced it consciously, it's a hard concept for most people to grasp. I've been sitting with clients and people in class lately, and this seems to be a theme that's been up for the last few weeks. And that existential fear of I have to hang on to this and I have to clutch this and hold it so I can survive is one of the pieces that keeps, again, these people from starting to open up to the new possibilities of their world. We talked a little bit about this last week when we were talking about move-aways and, what can open up from that. So,
right.
This is kind of the conversation that I want to slide into this week.
And ironically, I actually thought about that this week. I don't know why it was complete. There was no evidence for it, but it just popped in my head. What if I got a call from my ex or my ex and my daughter or whatever, and they're like, "Hey, we want to move to North Carolina, or we want to move to whatever," right?
Hmm.
And just kind of thinking for the first time, like I'm not tied here where I am. I've always kind of felt I was, right?
Right.
But at this point, um, I don't feel like I would be. I just there's more of an openness now to like where is the energy going? Where's life going? What is the
Right.
next chapter? And leaving any place doesn't mean you've left it forever. It just means like, okay, for this next stint,
Hmm.
it's. I mean, we're still either sitting down, lying down, or standing up, no matter where we are. What level, economic level? It could be a nicer chair, or it could be a bench.
Right. And we don't know what's going to open up there. And it may be that place that, oh, this is my next spot. This is where I rest. This is where I hang out. And, it evolves from there. But it's the holding back of the possibility that seems to dam up the energy and cause so much anxiety.
It almost seems to be an initial human response that change is negative, or change means worse. Like that's the default, and then we have to work purposefully to go, well, maybe that's not true, right? Or do some inquiry or whatever, because like the initial response, someone calls and says we want to move out of town with, I want to move out of town with the kids or whatever. It's not like new opportunity. Like the response is not like, yay, fresh start or whatever.
We've got to
All right.
break everything down in order to start to make those changes. And
Yeah.
sometimes, this tearing down is out of our control.
Yeah.
Sometimes, we get up and life has literally changed everything, where economically things have gone south, or emotionally things have torn the relationships apart, and we're sitting there in the abyss and we're looking around going, oh my God, what do I do? What's this look like? And it becomes a total starting over.
Yeah.
And what's it like to start over? What's it like to just think about what it is to start over? And, when I've been working with people in the last couple of weeks, and this again, it seems to be a theme that's out there. My question becomes, okay, there's this complex where people have left and money is left, or people are leaving and money is leaving, or there's a possibility of those things happening. And if you look at that or those components, what is it that you're holding on to?
Mm-hmm.
What is that holding about? And to your point, that idea of change being negative is that thought right there. What am I holding on to here? And what would happen if I let it go
Yeah.
and started all over from scratch? So the next question in that component is why am I holding on to this? What is it? And why am I holding on?
Yeah. Because that's another thing that's pretty habitual of ours, right? Like hold on to it, don't take it away. Once I have something, I don't want it to. I think there's a resistance to letting go and change just in general, even though it could be very positive.
Right.
And the other problem is people don't make major changes or decisions without some level of discomfort. So a lot of what we call negative or bad is is like for us. Like it's a gift, you know what I mean? Like looking at I'm about to drive off a cliff is a negative scary experience, but it serves you in the sense that you can hit the brakes or turn.
Mm-hmm.
And if you didn't have that eyesight, you wouldn't have the discomfort of going here comes a cliff. You just have the death. And I
Well,
feel like,
you forget about the ride.
yeah, and you forget the ride, right? Or the beauty of how far you can see, that kind of stuff. I've for years had fear of heights. I don't really have it as much anymore. But the other thing about being up that high is there's a lot of beauty and like awe. It's as close as you get to kind of like being a bird or sort of flying and seeing the world from that perspective. Um, I feel like, I mean, you get the calls when I'm losing my crap. I'm just losing my mind. So I don't go through this perfectly at all, but a lot better than I used to. And when I'm in calm moments, I'm way different than I used to be. Like, well, this is another one of those things, right? Another one of those things where I wouldn't make the changes that are best for me unless I had a serious level of discomfort to move away from the things that aren't, or had the people taken out of my life. Because people that leave from your life, there can be a feeling of loss or missing them or whatever, but some people need to be taken out of your life.
Right. There's an awakening sometimes to what just occurred or who they are, or the mask comes off and you go, wow, this felt healthy and it wasn't healthy. I
Right.
was in this and I was navigating in this and it felt good and it wasn't healthy. And this relationship, whether it's a business relationship or a romantic relationship or a personal relationship, it rolls in and it shows you something that you were blind to, that you didn't see in yourself in terms of how you navigate attachment or how you give up something of yourself to the relationship to hold a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And what comes out of the disintegration of that is an awakening of self.
Mm-hmm.
This is something about how I do things that is an opportunity for me to change. And that is the gold of this disintegration of whatever the relationship is, losing everything. You know, I was talking a little earlier about the disillusionment of my two marriages. And you know, as I go back, without those, without and virtually in the last one, starting from ground zero, from nothing, and just being able to watch how I was in relationship and how I was dependent on other, and how I worked within that holding, that when it was gone, all that was left was me. And all that was left was, okay, now how do I move forward with this? And how do I start to rebuild? And what I found, and what I've virtually found of every client that I've ever worked with that has embraced this piece, is they're okay.
Yeah.
And they find that they can do anything that they need to do, that there is enough in the world for them to get to the next level. And when they start to rebuild in this arena, that they have a new sense of self and a new sense of power of how to move forward. But they've got to get through some of this other stuff before they can ever get to that.
Right.
Exactly. And when they're in the negotiations, when they're in the mediations, when they're in the fight of the separation of the assets and of the children and these other components, they're not able to see that unless they stop and they go, wait a minute. What would happen if I let this go? Is there something in the holding that is representative of something else, something earlier, a fear of whatever it is? And to go into that exploration,
Yep.
to sit in that wonderment of why I am here and what is it that's taking place. From there, they can start to go, okay, I can let go. I can do something different here. There's an opening of, through the inquiry, of solving the problem from a different angle.
Yeah. Because I guess if you can find out what you're holding on to, you mentioned inquiry, that's when you can start to ask, like, do I have to have that? Is that true? Do I need that? Sort of pretend it's gone. What does life look like then? I'm still breathing in and out. I'm still sitting down, laying down, or standing up. Life is still happening for me. It's just, I don't know if it's my particular set of wounds, right? I've got a dad who left when I was 2 and I didn't see him for a year. And it seems like it created sort of a sensitivity to endings over time. Mm-hmm. I just didn't like when things ended, which is not a great way to approach the world because things do end, you know, jobs, relationships, parties, everything. But every relationship and every experience doesn't have to be lifelong. There's seasons for things, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a healthy life, kind of if you picture your life as a journey, pictured geographically, because it's probably the easiest to picture your life. You walk from the East Coast to the West Coast or whatever. You're going through towns and having relationships with the people that are in those towns and staying. But then as you move on, that relationship ends, right? I mean, my approach to life by accident was kind of like anything that ended was bad, and it created a whole lot of like uncomfortable feelings, right? But embracing the temporariness, the purposeful temporariness, that's what's healthy. Like people will be in your life while it serves you and while it's good for you, and then when they're gone, they're gone. It's not honestly a relationship ending is not that different than someone dying. Just when it's over, and there's nothing to fight, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. And you talk about, the purpose of the people in our lives. I had I had an interesting dream last week along these lines, and the crux of it is there was all of these people that had been in my life, and they were witnessing something that I was doing, and some would come in and they would try to move me off of what I was doing, and I would set a boundary and they would back up, and there was respect in this. But the essence of the dream, as I sat and it came out the other end, was each one of these people that had been in my life, and each and every one of the people in my life are here to teach me. They're my teachers.
Yeah.
And they're holding space for me to learn. So if I don't get into resistance with that, if I can be in relationship with that and open to what there is for me to learn here, then I get to evolve, right?
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful, beautiful dream. And I came out of that just really feeling full in my world. But this is kind of, the theme of what we're working through when we're coming through this Phoenix period of our lives. This moment of losing everything and tearing down, and the people that are involved in this are teaching us something. And they're teaching us about ourselves, and that we are truly capable of what is needed to move to the next piece.
Yeah.
I've had, it's interesting because, again, like I said earlier, this isn't just about the relationships, our romantic relationships, losing a divorce, but this is divorce of business and what goes on in that. And I've had a couple of people in the last 2 or 3 weeks that have been in the middle of people leaving and the destruction of their business model, and this holding on, this conversation of, I can fight this, or I can move through this to something that could be better. And with one of them, there was this place of that we kept coming back to, what would happen if you just let this go and you rebuilt? What's the energy between the two of really trying to hold it together and force this issue, or to let it go and to restructure? And between the couple of people that I was working with this, was one was really trying to hold that piece together and fighting the process of forcing these people to do something that they weren't going to do, and through lawsuits and everything, holding that in a place that was going to basically, probably, maybe if he went down that road, to set him back a year. And what was the monetary, what was the opportunity cost that was going to be lost to that? And then on the other place, just chopping wood, carrying water, doing the thing that had to happen to get to the next piece, and then rebuilding the new model, which was the opening to the opportunity that wasn't going to be lost through holding on to that. And I know that absolutely none of that conversation rings in your world, right?
Not at all, man. The listeners may or may not know I have 4 ex-employees that are no longer with the company. And that doesn't mean that's not negative, right? It doesn't mean anything about the time they were here for the season that we were together and the amazing things that we did, the amazing experiences that we had. And I think particularly if anything ends with a negative flavor to it, like let's say it is a relationship and you had 13 beautiful years and then somebody cheated and it ended. That's a very negative, kind of horrible feeling. It's a tough way for it to end, right? And yet it still doesn't change the amazing times that you did have, right? Or the reasons for them, or what it did for the kids during that time, or whatever it is. So my world, and there could be lawsuits and things like that. That's one of the options. And I'm
Right.
I don't know as much as you do. I've been learning from you, but that lives in my mind because of this show. Is, would it even be worth it? Like, it doesn't matter if I'm right. It doesn't matter if the law was broken. It doesn't matter if I could win money. There's another side of that. Like, should I bother with that, or is it just a sort of negative? And it's not like it changes people. You know what I mean? Like what's the word, recidivism? Like people that return to jail after going to jail. Like, jail doesn't really reform from what we can see from the numbers, right? It just kind of temporarily holds somebody away from society. It's not that it retrains them to behave well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that lawsuits give somebody a particular kind of spanking that's so effective that they go out and only do good for them. You know what I mean? So it's not like I need to do this because it'll do good to them. Everything kind of has to be weighed that way. Like, is it worth it for me emotionally? Is this positive? Is it going in the right direction? You know, the world needs me to go this way. So let me sue the people that the universe used to make it happen. I don't know if that's always the right answer.
Right. And oftentimes it's not, because again, it's that backward looking piece, not the forward looking piece.
Mm-hmm.
And it's loss of opportunity because my energy's over here and I'm doing this. So when we're looking at this from the standpoint of, a divorce, a separation, a custody battle, whatever it is looking at what the energy is. And, this idea of fairness and justice and reparation and agreements broken, versus the energy to move on and to rebuild. And a lot of people use the custody battle to hold on to the relationship, to try to force somebody to do what they were supposed to do, or do what they never did, or to make them pay for whatever those pieces are, and it just keeps them stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the money piece that people get so tied up in. And we don't want to walk away from everything unless walking away from everything makes sense. And when staying in the fight for 3 or 5 or 7 or 10 years, and I've seen people literally get stuck in their financial battle for that long over virtually nothing, that it keeps people from moving on. Yeah. And where do I just drop that down and say, bye-bye, I can do this differently. And if you want to do this over here, do this, but I'm going to keep moving on. And to the point where I see people not engage in their future because they don't want to give up any of their future to the past, which keeps them from creating the world that they're entitled to and that their children are entitled to, because they're afraid of giving something up.
Right.
So, this is relaxing into, let's just go forward. Let's see what happens.
Right. I mean, with or without the support of your ex, the world is always enough. I mean, you don't need any other human being in reality, right? People, what if they died? Like, the person's alive. We're talking in this sense. I'm talking about somebody that's living in the paralyzation of, like, I need this person to support me because I didn't work for 20 years, whatever, right? Like, I need. And I all of that's very real. Like, you took care of the kids and didn't develop your career. The world changed. You don't understand all the technology, perhaps, right, in the office environment, whatever it is, right? Like all that's still very real. None of that changes the more real reality or truth that, I mean, the universe is for you and you're going to be okay and don't need any other human being. Like you're enough.
Right.
Unless you make false, I believe it's probably pretty common that you live in this type of house, and then when you split to two households, you're each living in these types of houses, or you like went to these restaurants or had this much discretionary income, and now we're splitting it in two, and you're down. There's some sort of a quote downgrade in freedom, discretionary income, size of house or neighborhood, whatever, right? When you split one income into two or whatever it is, right? Unless you create this, like, no, I need it to be that I get to be in Beverly Hills or whatever that is in your world. You know what I mean? The nicer versus the lesser. No one needs more than a roof over their head and some food, and that might be Jack in the Box tacos instead of Ruth's Chris steak, and it's still food.
We'll take the Ruth Chris if you don't mind, because the Jack in the Box just isn't healthy. But
you go to nutrition. You go to nutrition at a time like this.
Right. And again, it's a look at what the need really is in this. And when we downscale, oftentimes we find that life gets easier, not harder. My experience in life is the more I have, the more I have to work. And if things are at a place where this is okay, I like this, and I can live more, I can be more in the world, I can be more in relationship. I don't have to run to the office and jam 14-hour days, and I can work 4 days a week, and I can take some time off and enjoy. And I'm living in a smaller house with fewer things, man, I'm down for that all day long. And where people look at this place again is, what am I holding on to and why am I holding on to it? When we start to let that go, we start to be able to relax again. And you brought up something, Charlie, that I think is really important in this, is where we become other dependent because of the choices that we've made. And, versus, being self-dependent, doing these things yourself and creating your world on your own. And part of the exploration is why did I make that decision to do that in that way? And oftentimes, whether we're a father or a mother, the decision is to stay home and to raise the kids and to do that component. But sometimes the reason that we did that was not the healthy reason to stay home and do the kids. That's the guise of the societal norm that we've wrapped it around, that we're disguising ourselves in, and we wanted somebody else to go do the other things in the world that we didn't want or have to do or didn't know how to do. And this was that. So to see where those components lie, where we were looking for somebody to take care of us. And it wasn't that we were not doing something, that we weren't taking care of other as well, but where that place of letting go of ourself to be able to really create the things in our world that we let go. So there's this place of, now is that opportunity. Okay, I let it go. This was it. And this is one of the areas that I teach in my classes of, self-care, but also self-realization in finding those components. And through this phoenix, through this tearing down and starting over, that becomes one of the things that's possible.
And when there's kids involved, so most of the people listening, I would imagine, have kids, because high conflict without kids is kind of a different issue. You know what I mean? When there's kids involved, everything you do is their childhood. It is what we all talk about, right? Looking back at our childhoods, and all of it is teaching. All of it is example. They're watching. Even if you don't, even if it seems like stuff they can't see, there's still an energy happening inside of you. And my opinion would be the energy that someone needs to see is not like fighting for someone else to continue supporting you after you're no longer even a couple, right? But the energy of, guys, life changes and it's good, and you do whatever it takes to take care of the people in your life that you love. You know what I mean? Like, I love you guys, and I'll do anything to make sure that we are moving forward and have food on the table. And I recently I've been thinking about the movie The Pursuit of Happiness, because I have been going through a pretty dramatic change in what life looks like, and income, at least in the short term, and all that, right? And I remember the movie Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith, where at times he's sleeping in like public bathrooms with his son, but he's making it fun.
Mm-hmm.
He's painting this whole picture, and I want to watch it again with my family, because it's like, we've had these beautiful, amazing houses, and then sometimes we've lived in with other people temporarily between houses, right? I remember one time we sold a house and bought another one, and it wasn't ready for like a month, so my entire family lived in one room in a friend's house with all of our stuff, right? Kind of sleeping next to it. There's times we've been really wealthy, and times it's been kind of lean. But on an interview, I think it was on Oprah, an interview with that boy who was played by Will Smith's son, and the actual dad who went through that, who I've seen speak. Oprah asked the boy, like, what was it like, going through that, being that poor and living in bathrooms? And the boy was like, I didn't even know it. He's like, I just knew everywhere I was, my dad was there, and it was awesome.
Right.
It's the kids. What do they really need from you? Just to stay positive and stay moving forward and stay connected to them, no matter what economic level you're at. And honestly, if someone's, and I can't speak from experience, so I don't want to be rude in any way. I was the provider, not the person that took 20 years off and tried to raise kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
But from what I've heard and watching people go through this experience, if you've been provided for, and you're forced into a situation where you have to provide for yourself, and you go out and you create this measly little paycheck that's lower than anything you've ever seen, there's some weird joy that washes over you. You're like, I did that. Like, I made that $87. That was me.
Right.
It's empowering, right?
And as that builds our sense of self, and the mask of what I need really changes. That comes off, and it's that sense, again, it's that sense of I can. And when our children watch us go through that, to your point of being in those different flows of different energies, of different amounts of affluence and loss thereof, they get to learn that life moves forward, that there's enough, and enough looks different from time to time.
Yep.
And that I can overcome the next piece, because they've watched their parents do that. And they've been in the energy of a parent that is connected to them, that was the most important piece. So that becomes how they look at relationship and hold on to those next movements as they grow.
Yeah. It is just as possible to think of your separation as being for the kids, as opposed to the initial response, which is, this is going to be damaging to them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
sometimes giving the energy, Charlie, of the relationship it is for the kids. It's the best possible thing that could happen to them. And, again, that becomes dependent on how we feel.
Yep. I remember in business going to a workshop. I had this assistant, and it just wasn't working out well, right? Clients were complaining a little bit inside the office. Things were being missed. And I remember going to a workshop where this really huge, successful company that I know that works with financial advisors said, you need to fire quickly and hire slowly. And that's kind of the opposite of my personality, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs, which is like, well, whatever, hire, come work with me, it's fun, and then you don't let somebody go when they're messing things up because you don't want to hurt their feelings, or it's a nuisance, or change is bad, seen as bad, whatever, right? And I remember realizing like, oh my goodness, like I need to let this person go. And they said the reason I'm bringing this up is because they said they don't know anybody who has fired somebody that they thought should be let go who regrets it, but they know hundreds of financial advisors who've regretted keeping someone too long, right? And I bring that up because it seems like the same story everywhere I go with somebody that finally went through a divorce. They're like, I stayed 5 years too long. I stayed 10 years too long. I stayed 45 years too long. And they have regret, right? I've never heard a single person say, I really shouldn't have left them. I regret divorcing this abusive person or this lazy person or this whatever, right? Whatever it was that was upsetting you. And so there's some lesson to be learned there too, because it seems like universally we all make the same mistake and stay in it too long, right? When it's not working. I had somebody tell me yesterday, sorry to cut you off. I had somebody tell me yesterday that she was separated for 8 years and now is finally divorced, and her ex and their son still have dinner 2 to 3 times a week. And she's actually living in the ex's house while her house is remodeled, and they have like this amazing peaceful friendship and relationship that's platonic.
Mm-hmm.
And her friends are super uncomfortable about it. Like her friends are not okay with it. And because there's some belief that you have to hate your ex or like have a lot of anxiety. And she says the reality is a lot of people should divorce or break up before it gets to the point where you hate each other, when you're just sort of peacefully realizing this isn't going to fulfill either one of us, you know?
But there's also relationships that aren't fulfilling, that people come into and they go, it's time to separate, and things are okay, and they do work and they are friendly. And there's the other relationships that I typically see that are blowing up that are high conflict because of the nature of the personalities that are involved, that are abusive and they're manipulative and they've got all of these other components to it that we can say the person should have got out a long time ago,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't know what we don't know, and we don't know what we know until we know it.
Yeah.
You know, and there's that component of an awakening of, okay, enough's enough, the boundary's here, I'm gone. But when I'm gone, that separation from the manipulation, that separation from the need, that separation from whatever is holding me here, which comes back to where we started, you know, what am I holding on to, still isn't resolved just because I left.
Mm-hmm.
And that piece, once it's really filtered through and parsed out, is the place where we get release. Then we can move on. So this whole thing that we're talking about, this phoenix doesn't just burn out into ash and then suddenly it's back into its previous form. No, it's burnt to ash and then it regrows itself. It redevelops itself into a different bird.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it takes time and it takes effort, and it doesn't happen on its own. There's energy that has to come in that we have to bring into that whole process.
Got it. Yeah. So you're working one-on-one with people to identify these things, right? What are you holding on to?
Right.
You know, you're working with people on their, I mean, what are we? We're what we think and what we do, right? That sort of creates the life as what did you say to me one time? I thought was like the coolest thing. We're all in charge of our own evolution.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you change someone's thinking and change their actions, and speaking is an action. It's one of the actions that tends to have a pretty serious effect on people's lives, right? You're working with people on how they're thinking and what they're doing to basically create the life that they want, right?
And it's always an exploration.
Right.
And it's always an individual exploration. But again, you know, one of the first things that I talk to somebody about when we're talking about whether it's finances or custody or whatever, it's like, what do you want and why do you want it?
Yeah.
What are you holding on to and what can you let go of? What's healthy? What's not?
Right.
And those are hard questions. They seem easy, but they're hard questions. And they're essential. They're essential to loosening the ties that hold us in the conflict and that hold us back from moving forward, from evolving.
Yeah.
There's this place of when we really get into that, where we pull the mask off of who we think we are, who we think we've idealized our image to. And we begin to look at the shadow and the manipulation of what we've done in that and why we've done that in that. And that's painful stuff. It's not easy. It's the process of the burning of the phoenix. And once that's off, that's where we come alive. That's where we start to see clearly about a different path, and we start to live our world from consciousness.
Mm.
And it changes everything.
Yep.
But it's painful.
Pain and suffering are different, aren't they?
Yeah.
And what I'm getting at is, I don't know which religion it comes from or which kind of thought process, but I've heard on some podcasts and some teachers and books and things like that, people talk about, if something happens to you that's painful, that's kind of just part of life, but the pain's always temporary. But you can create a lot of suffering out of that with the way you think about it, or reliving it every day for the rest of your life.
Holding on to it,
right? And the most challenging teachers are like, whatever it is, okay, you went through X, but who's the worst who's the worst terrorist? The person that did it once, or the person that's done it to you for 45 years every day, which is you, right? And there's some freedom in going, oh my goodness, I'm worse than the person that did it to me, because I had an experience I didn't like, so let's play the video of it every day for the rest of our lives. You know what I mean? Right? I hated this movie. Let's watch it every day.
Why am I holding on to that video?
Yeah, what would life be like if you let it go?
I was having this conversation in class just last night, and it was like, it's really super easy to go internal and into the past and revisit the pain. And people have this hard time of coming into the present and creating a future. And why is that disparity so strong in most all of us? It's like, yeah, if I go internal and I relive the past, I am in anxiousness all of the time. But if I come out of that and into the present moment and look into the future, somehow that anxiety resolves itself. And why do I choose that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's a wonderful exploration. And I want everybody to have that exercise as they finish listening to this podcast, is to do that exercise, to go internal and think about something that's painful that they keep getting drawn into, whatever it is, whether it's with the divorce or their childhood or whatever it is, and then stop. And then just look around the room. Be present for whatever they can see. Concentrate on the leaf of the plant or the flower or the picture or something of the grain in the wood, and just be with that. And then think about something that they really love to do, whether it's skiing or surfing or hiking or being with their children in those environments and being in creation of that, and see how that feels in their system. And then ask the question, why do I choose this over that?
Right.
What's holding me here, and how can I let all of that burn out and create this?
Yeah. There's so much hope for people. There really is. There's so much hope for people. And the belief that it would take years and years and years to heal from this deserves some inquiry. Yes, people have said that. Yes, people have gone through that experience, but don't be like most people, right? Is there another path? Which the answer we know is yes, there's another path to healing faster, or to moving on or letting things go or focusing on the positive, moving forward, right? Focusing on the kids that are there, right there, and providing an example for them. And having a coach coach you through that is essential.
I think the difference, and this again is something that I talked about in class last night as we wind down here. It's really easy to slip back into the old patterns because they're patterns and we know them and they are just dug into and grooved into our brain and our system. But it takes effort. It takes discipline. It takes vision to move out of that, to be present, to move forward, to do the things that are required to take care of yourself, to meditate, to have vision, and to create those pieces. And it's lazy and it's easy to go into the cycles of sorrow and depression and victimhood. So be here, take the effort, learn what it does to move forward or what it takes to move forward, and the disciplines to do it, whether that's, this whole package of therapy and coaching and meditation and visualization and mindfulness and parent education and whatever these are. Yeah, they take effort. So damn it, do it.
Yeah.
And don't just sit back into the malaise of the past.
Yeah. Takes effort to get an airplane off the ground too. It'll be a lot easier to just let it sit there. But and once you're up in the air, it's some smooth sailing and you can go anywhere you want.
Right.
Yeah, man. That's awesome.
Thank you, Charlie, for another round of this. This has been a good conversation, and I hope everybody really takes it in and enjoys what we've given them today.
Yeah, man. Thank you. And for the listeners, as kind of somebody that's going through this at the same time as you, depending on when you're listening to this, certainly at this time in my life, I'm going through this. It's a good thing. These things that we say are bad things, or when change comes that we didn't want, kind of that forced change or relationships ending, the new season that shows up, it's good. Life is happening for you. So if you embrace it and roll with it and keep focusing on that you don't need more than you and you're enough, I think that people will have a lot more peace, Brooke. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back next week. Signing off, Brooke Olson and Charlie Jewett, High Conflict Co-Parenting Podcast. Hope you guys are enjoying it. Tell your friends, share the show with them. Let's try to help as many people as we can. Bye-bye now. Brooke, people don't have to wait until Friday mornings to get more content. If this is something that's helpful for them, right? This isn't the first time you've broadcast anything or recorded anything or put anything out there in the world. What are the other ways people can get the help more aggressively or speed up their recovery process? What materials are available for people right now?
Well, I've written a book called The Black Hole of High Conflict, and it's available on Amazon and Kindle. Great. And everything that we're talking about is really compressed and put into there. So this is a really good starter place to get in and get your mind working and to see what these concepts are about and how to start to apply them. The other place that I think that is valuable is to go to our website and look at some of the blog articles that I've written. Those are available there as well. They go into some of these other arenas, and that's at www.highconflict.net. So the book, the website are also really good places to get the material. And also we have classes. We have high conflict diversion program classes that you can get into and get some one-on-one help with this as well.
And you know me, I'm aggressive. Whatever I want to become good at or learn, I find someone who's good at it and pay them and hire them and shorten my learning curve. What if somebody just wants your help? Somebody says, Brooke has this information. He's good at something I'm not good at yet, and I want to work with him. Do you have any type of coaching or consultations or anything like that?
Absolutely. I do one-on-one coaching for custody cases. I help people get ready for family court services. If you've got that in your community, I work with attorneys and clients to help them with managing and strategically setting them up to have more successful cases as well.
And how do they reach out? You want them to just go to the website or email or phone, or what's the best way for them to reach out, raise their hand, and say, I need some help?
They can email me. My direct email is brook@highconflict.net. That's BROOK at highconflict, HIGH, conflict.net.
Perfect. That's everything everybody would need to get some help, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Brooke.